Tinha que fazer tudo, hein? Coração?
Ai, isso, esqueci. Acho que eu vou. All right, good morning, everyone. It's always good to have you all here, incarnated, discarnated. And it's a beautiful Sunday, sunny, nice, but we're all here together again to learn together, to enlighten ourselves a little bit more from the lessons from the gospel that our friend Joyce is going to bring us today. We're going to be talking about honor your parents. And but as always, before we start our lecture, we're going to have our initial reading and our initial prayer. And it's going to be from the book Happy Life by Divaldo Pereira Franco, by the spirits of Joana de Angelis. When a man decides to modify his moral conduct for the better, he seems to face a general conspiracy against his desire for improvement. Everything changes and is out of control. The least little things become complicated, and the rhythm of events changes for the worse for some time. This state of affairs leads the person who would improve himself to retreat and give up. Every transference modifies what is usual. In the area of moral actions, the reaction is the greater because one is penetrating to the root of evil to cut it out. This leads to the growth of new and balanced customs. Do not abandon your goals of morality and inner growth because of the first difficulties you encounter. So let us all now here open up our hearts and our minds to be connected with God, our Master, with God, our Father, with Jesus, our Master, and all the good benefactors that are here around us today, who are already enlightening us and giving us all the light and the good energy that we all need. We ask the benefactors of this house to protect and guide our friend Joyce during this lecture, so she can help us to learn a little bit more of your gospel, of your laws of love and charity. And so be it. Joyce.
Hi everyone, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks everybody that are joining us here physically, and thanks everyone that is following us through the internet. So today, the topic that is for me to talk about is, as you see, it's about honor your parents. Something very important, and something that I'm sure there is not much of questioning around this, right? I think for most of us, at least, it's pretty obvious the meaning behind it. But that does not mean that it's always easy and easy to do it. And it's certainly many times easy to be forgotten. And we can easily forget that even without noticing. So that's why it's so important for us to reflect again around this topic, and also reflect into ourselves as well, our role as a kid, because if we are here, no matter how good or bad your parent is, you do have a parent. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Many of us, the parents might not be physically with us anymore. We might have difficult parents, we might have challenging parents, we might have loving parents. Regardless what kind of parent we have, Jesus was very strict in this law. It's honor your parents. It's not honor your parents if you have a loving parent. It's not just honor your parents if your parents is perfect in your point of view. No, it's honor your parents, period. And that's what we're gonna reflect about it, right? Also, because my idea here today is that not only those who have a loving parent, leave this house today, leave this lecture today here with the heart full of gratitude by feeling, oh, I'm very blessed because I have an amazing parents. But I also want those who have challenging parents for any reason that they leave this talk today with the same feeling in their hearts. They also should feel blessed for having had that parent, that father, that mother, because without them, you wouldn't have the most important gift, the gift of life, the opportunity of being here in this school, because that's the only way we can evolve, we can grow, we can learn. So without the parents that are the instruments that allow us to be here, we wouldn't have this amazing opportunity. So this is the main concept that we're going to reflect on today. Also, I want to take the opportunity, because probably it's not by chance as well, but today is Father's Day in Brazil. So for those who are Brazilian, I want to wish a happy Father's Day for everybody. Here in Canada, the Father's Day was in June, but still, it's an important moment for us to think about our parents, father, mother, and be grateful for them. All right, so during the reflection that I'm going to go through in the next few slides here that I'm going to cover, one important thing is for us to understand why we are talking about this. So just for you to have an idea how important is this topic, when we go back in time, even before Jesus, the time that Moses came and brought to us the Ten Commandments, because that was a time where the society was very primitive. And the spirits incarnated in that time was still in a very primitive stage of evolution. So they really needed restricted rules, right? And those are basically the reason why Moses had to come and bring the Ten Commandments. For them to start this connection between God and the society and understand that there is a higher intelligence that governs everybody, and it's bringing to you the list of things that you have to do in order to be successful in life. And between the 10 commandments, guess what? One of them is honor your parents. So this is just to highlight that this is not something simple, and it's not something that can easily be forgotten or misled. It's something that we need to bring to our lives. We need to bring this concept to our daily action and reflect on ourselves. What are we doing on that matter? As a kid, how am I doing this? Am I really honoring my parents? Am I really being the kid that I should be? And then also, the reason that I mentioned initially that I want even those who have challenging parents, I want them to leave this talk with like feeling that they are also blessed for having the parents they have. They will only be able to do that transformation when, again, they look into themselves as the main figure in their own journey. So I'm the one that has the most important role in directing my journey in this life. I need to stop, and the Spiritists bring this teaching many different kind of concepts. And honor your parents is just another one, where I need to see myself as the main person responsible to everything that happened to my own. I need to stop looking into myself as a victim of the situation and see that everything that is happening with me, either the good or the bad, are definitely and always consequences of my own choices from this life, from previous life, from many multiple other existences. So when I look into that, I will certainly, or at least will certainly help me stop in blaming others, blaming outside. And parents are very commonly blamed in that perspective. I will stop to blame my parents for the situation I live now, and will look into myself and say, well, if this is happening, probably there's a reason. So let's stop blaming outside and looking into me and see, what can I do to make this different? And do I really want to stay into this suffering forever, to prolong this suffering, this pain? Or am I ready to make a change? And again, in this process here of honoring parents, you also gonna understand that your role is not to change your parents. The same way that our role is not to change our neighbors, our brothers. Our role in this life is to change ourselves. So by the moment that I understand that, I will look into my parents with a very different perspective. And even if I had very challenging parents in this life, parents that maybe have abandoned me, parents that had many vices, many complications, I mean, there's a whole bunch of situations, I will still be able to look into myself and say, yes, was hard. The parents that I had was not really able to give me the best opportunities during my childhood. But once I start my own life, I get the key to guide myself and change the direction that I would go. Even if my parents made many mistakes to push me into a certain situation, there is certainly a moment that I'm not a young kid anymore, that I'm able to make my own choices. And when that moment starts, I'm the one responsible for everything that goes afterwards. Yes, it's nice to be raised in a family that is very full of love and caring, a family that is raised following the laws of God, a family where you have Jesus in the house since the very beginning, like a family that we all dream for. But that is not necessarily what always happens. And if I'm born in a certainly specific situation and family, it's because there's a reason. So I'm probably, or maybe that it was even a trial that I have chosen before this incarnation. So now it's the time for me to look into it with a different perspective and start to have control of my own actions, and knowing that I'm the one that can direct my life, either this way or that way. So just by doing that change in perspective, you will be able to follow this commandment better. You'll be able to look into your parents as not only the person that allowed you to be here in this life, but also be very, very grateful for that person that gave yourself the opportunity to be in this incarnation. Okay? So when we think in honor parents, I start to look into the concept of honor, right? It's a very easy concept. All of us, I'm pretty sure, know about it. So when you say honor, means a showing of usually merited respect. So this is the meaning that you can find in many dictionaries, like to show great respect for someone, to show esteem for someone. That means to honor, right? And we're gonna see in the gospel according to Spiritism, the chapter 14 is all about this. So again, for you to see how important is this teaching, there's a whole chapter in the gospel talking about this. And over there, you will see Jesus and Kardec will explain that in simple words. We're going to start to understand that The idea also is not only to respect your parents, but also go way and beyond. Offer them as much as you can to help them to have a dignity, to have a nice end of life, to offer them all their needs, to be there for them in any possible situation. So basically, the Gospel according to Spiritism in this chapter, they started by listing the commandments, because that's when we start to think about the importance of to honor parents, right? So when you think about the commandments, we all know, we pretty much say, do not commit adultery, do not kill, do not steal, do not bear false witness, do not commit fraud. So there's a list of actions, right? And between that, those lists, it says honor your father and your mother. So the commandments, they are basically moral, ethical principles that was transmitted by God through Moses at the time. And the aim was basically to maintain or to bring a sense of morality to that society that was very primitive at that time. And as we evolve, our understanding evolved as well, but we see that that list is still very true. We just, in many ways, don't need someone to tell you, oh, you should not kill. It's already in us, that idea that that is not something that should be done. And the same thing is the honor your parents. The idea is that as we evolve, this is going to be something natural. We don't need to be reminded about it, because in our heart, that gratitude towards someone who allowed us to be in this life. But also, as we learn with Spiritism, we were all granted a free will. What is exactly that? The freedom for you to do whatever you want. But pay attention, you can do whatever you want, yes. But every action, there is a reaction. Every action, there is a consequence. So be ready for that. So some people really think that this concept of to honor your parents is too much for them, because they feel very victim of all the consequences of the parents they have. Oh, but my father, he was in a like very difficult man. He committed a lot of abuse in our house, physical abuse. He had many vices with alcohol, with sometimes drugs. You don't know. It's easy for you to say, come and honor your parents. Yes, I see that your parents might have made many mistakes, but this does not allow you to continue the mistakes, or does not allow you to make the mistake of not being grateful for having them, but for having had the chance to be in this life, and he or she was the person who allowed you to be here. So just by that is enough. Nobody, yes, God expects when you have a kid that you take care of that kid, that you are responsible for that. So there is expectations for the parents. And I can guarantee you that those parents who does not fulfill well their roles, they will also have consequences. But let only them have the consequences. Don't increase the consequences towards you by not being the kid that you should be. And when we say to honor your parent, you do not necessarily need to forget all the things that your parents have done to you, because this is very hard. But you should try to clean your heart from all the negative thoughts and feelings, and try to send to that person loving, forgiveness, and caring, and gratitude. We're going to see at the end that, for me, that's the most important concept when I think about to honor parents, is the concept of gratitude. And that concept needs to come in everything you have in life. And towards your parents will not be different at all. If we are able to develop the gratitude in our heart, that's the key for us to achieve the goal of honoring our parents. Because also put ourselves in a very different position where we are not blaming anymore, but we are actually understanding the situation I am, being grateful for that, be like resignate and understanding, and that is the key for you to start the process of inner transformation. So when in the chapter 14, when they start to talk about honor your parents, Kardec says the commandment honor your father and your mother is an inference from the general laws of charity and love towards one's fellow beings, seeing that those who do not love their mother and father cannot then love their fellow creatures. And again, this is that concept that the most important school starts in our home. So you are in that family for a reason. So similarly, all the challenges and trials that you are facing, there is a reason. So take advantage of that. And instead of blaming and complaining, start to look into it as an opportunity for you to grow, especially if you want to make it, to have a different future. And as spiritists, we know that the life is not just this moment, right? This is just a very, very like tiny piece of your journey, very, very tiny. So if you want, if you suffer now, and you certainly want a different future, start to think on what you are doing. Because if you're not able to forgive your parents and honor them now, we never know how it's going to be your next parents, right? Or the debts that you have towards that person will persist. And at some point, that is only going to be cleared when you are able to change your attitude towards them. Okay? So here, when Kardec starts to mention, explain this topic, he says exactly that. If you are not able to cultivate love in the house, in the family, how are you going to spread that love outside, right? But with regard to parents, here the word honor contains an extra obligation, which is filial devotion. God wishes to show us that respect, esteem, obedience, caring, submission, and deference should be joined to love. All this put together involve an obligation for each person to carry out what is demanded by charity with regard to one's neighbor, and which implies an even more rigorous duty towards parents. So basically, all the obligations that we know that we have towards our neighbor, when we look into our parents, we escalate that. And that's mainly because when we start to have that gratitude in our heart, we will see that we are only here because of our parents. So for sure, the respect, the loving and caring that I should have to my universal family, it needs to be even higher towards my parents, because they are the ones that allowed me to be here. This duty naturally extended itself to those who take the place of a mother or father. So if you have non-biological parents, it's the same implies to them, or a friend or another family member that is the figure of a mother and a father for you, and whose merit is much greater because their devotion has nothing of obligation, since they are not your biological parents, right? And then the Kardec finished, God will rigorously punish all violation of this commandment. And as spiritists here, we know what that punishment means. That punishment obviously will not come from God and say, okay, you are condemned, done, you're going to go to prison. It's not that type of punishment, right? The punishment will come from ourselves. When we get to the spiritual world and our capacity to see and understand expand, our own consciousness will condemn us. And we will increase a lot the suffering and pain when we realize that you were not able to follow this law of honor your parents. So to honor your mother and father consists in not only showing respect, but also helping them in their needs, offering them rest in their old age, and surrounding them with care, just as they themselves did for you during our infancy. Because it's so obvious, right? When we see a mother or father taking care of a kid, right? For us, you look into that and you see, oh, of course, the kid cannot do on his own. He needs parents to feed them, to wash them, to give them medicine, to take them to a physician, like regular checkups, to take them to school, to make sure they are learning, to teach them, and so on. But when we got to the other stage, when a person gets old, it does not sound so obvious to us that the kid now needs to take care of them, right? And we see so many often how many of them are just abandoned anywhere in hospitals, in retirement homes. And again, there is no problem to put your parent in a place where he's gonna be cared, because obviously we grow up, we carry other responsibilities too. We have a family to raise, you have your job, you have a partner, you have your own kids. You not have as much time to take care of your parents the same way that your parents had the time to take care of you when you were a little one. But what the idea here is not to feel guilty if you need to put your parent in a place to be where there are people or structure to take care of them. But what do? You just leave your parent there, or are you present? Are you there all the time? Are you in contact with your parents? If you live far away, like many of us here that live far away from our parents in another country, are you in touch of them? Do they know that they can count on you? Do you give them a call? Do you feel that connection? Do you feel them? Do they feel you closer all the time by this connection of loving and caring? This is what Jesus wants from us. This is what Jesus meant when he says to honor your parents. And this only your conscience is going to tell you if you are doing it right or not. We don't even need anybody to judge. We can make that reflection and see, how am I as a kid? And I can tell you, the life can be so hard for many of us. But one of the things that is so difficult and painful is when you lose a loving one, and then you start to regret about everything that you should have done and you didn't do. I should have called. I should have said, I love you. I should have been present in that moment. So think about that while, if for those here who still have your parents, think about that before this moment comes. Because although as a spirits you know that life is eternal, but the moment that you lose someone physically, you easily can go into so many questioning and the feeling of guilty that can cause you a lot more pain. So don't allow that, and try to be as present as you can and try to follow this commandment as much as you can, because that will give you the peace of mind when that time comes. Because at least you know that everything that is in your hands, you have a chance to do it. And that makes you feel good toward yourself, and you feel that your parents are going to the spiritual world in peace, and you're going to be in peace here. And we know that at some point you're going to be reunited again, right? So in Kardec, when we say that about those challenging parents, Kardec mentioned that too in the chapter 14. He says, it is true that some parents neglect their duty and are not all they should be, and they don't do what they should be to their children. However, it is only God who has the competence to judge and not the children. In other words, it's not for you to judge your parents. Your job is to honor them no matter what, right? And they will face their consequences. That consequence will come to them. but it's not for you to be the judge in the situation. So these are not competent to be able to judge because they have perhaps deserved the parent's behavior. See, Kardec in this point even go deeper in our wound and say, oh, maybe all that you are facing now, it's something that you deserve to go through. So look into it more as an opportunity to grow, and how can I make this as a chance for me to look into myself and change myself instead of just blaming. And as I said initially, maybe it was a trial that I have chosen before. Even before incarnation, I have chosen, I want, like I've been made so many mistakes before. Maybe I was a terrible parent in the past. Maybe I've done something wrong with a certain person. So now I want to be in this situation, to be abandoned by a father or by a mother, to be neglected by my parents, to be like to not feel loved by my parents. Maybe that is something that I need to go through. So if I go through this with resignation and understanding, and doing my job as a kid to honor my parents, I can guarantee that I'll be awarded in a future life. Because that part I was able to clean from myself, and I was able to correct that mistake. Okay? And obviously then will be, like my parents will face their own consequences. Their journey will continue as well. And maybe at some point we're going to be reconnected again in a very different circumstances. Loving each other, maybe, like my parents will also go through the process of transformation, and we might be in a future life living together in the same life in different circumstances, right? So Kardec also mentioned in the topic, in order to explain these situations where the connection and the relationship between parents and kids are not so great, they also explain why that happens, right? He said, blood ties do not necessarily create bonds between spirits. So just the fact that you are a kid of that father or that mother does not mean you have a strong connection. And we all know that, right? About the family ties and bloody ties, it's spiritual ties. So we can be born in a family where we had many issues, many previous issues with our father or our mother, like spiritual problems that started like many existences ago. So that explains why it's so challenging. Sometimes if you are, why I cannot look into my mother with such a loving that I should. Why my mother does not love me. So both ways can be explained by this, right? Blood ties do not necessarily create bonds between spirits. The body comes from the body, but the spirit does not proceed from the spirit, since the spirit already existed before the formation of the body. So once I have a child, I'm not creating that spirit. I'm just creating a new body. But the spirit that is going to be connected to that body has a long journey, and like many previous existences, right? So the parents do not create the spirit of the child. They do nothing more than supply the material wrapping, although it is their duty to help the intellectual and moral development of their child in order to further its progress, right? So obviously the parents has that duty, in the same way that that kid has the duty to honor the parents afterwards, okay? So this idea and concept that spiritists bring to us also help us not only to understand why sometimes that connection is not so perfect, because we might be in that situation, right? Some of you here might be in the situation that you have problems connecting to your parents. So by understanding this also give us so much consolation, knowing that, oh, now I understand, so it's not my fault. It might be not totally their fault. Maybe it's just a call for both of us to transform, to be better. And I cannot change my mother or my father. I can only change myself. So let's start from this. I'm going to change myself. I'm going to try to help my parents for them to change. Yes, I can do that. But knowing that I might not be able to. And don't feel guilty if you are not able to, because they have their own journey, the same as you. And your responsibility is for your own choices, not about their choices. And then Kardec mentioned, gratitude is one of the most direct results of selfishness and always causes revolt in honest hearts. Because it's so hard, right? When a parent feels ingratitude or when a kid feels ingratitude. But the ingratitude of children towards their parents shows an even more hateful trait of character. It is especially this point of view we are going to consider, so we may analyze the causes and effects of this attitude. So basically here, Kardec starts to say how bad can be the consequences if you don't express the gratitude towards your parents. So he's pretty much he's bringing the concept here to tell you that actually you might escalate by thousands the initial mistake you made from previous existence. For example, if you have that challenging parent, that's likely secondary of previous mistakes that you are not aware of. But by not showing the gratitude, by honoring your parents, you are pretty much just multiplying that mistake by hundreds, thousands that you might not even have idea of, right? So Spiritism offers enlightenment on one of the greatest problems of human hearts, which is the selfishness and the ingratitude, right? So learning and reading this chapter can bring lots of consolation and can be the call for you right now to change your perspective and your actions, because it's never too late. So if you feel that you need to change, the time is right now, okay? So basically, also in that chapter, Kardec keeps explaining the reason why you have these challenges, because of previous existence, because also when a new kid is born, they bring with them like a whole bunch of experience. So accordingly, it continues here, accordingly, many spirits return to the spiritual world full of hate and violence, as well as full of insatiable desires for revenge. And they are born in a certain family for a reason. And if they bring all those feelings, the negative feelings in them, that might control their actions, right? So that clearly explains why sometimes you don't see parents loving their kids as the way they are supposed to. And then we see kids kind of paying back their parents by not feeling loved. They pay back by neglecting and ignoring their parents. But also Spiritism says, nevertheless, there are always some among them who are more advanced and so able to perceive a faint glimmer of truth, enabling them to appreciate the disastrous consequence of these passions, which in turn induce them to make good resolutions for the future. So there's always those who, even born in the most difficult and challenging environment, they accept the call, they see the light, and they make the change, right? And again, we all have this ability and this free will and this capacity. Even if you think it's almost impossible, look again and you see that you are the ones who guide your journey. You can always make the change. Especially when we learn Spiritism and you understand that this experience here is so petite, is so tiny in your whole journey of life, you will see that this problem cannot be bigger than what it is. I can make it change for me and for the person, for my parents. By starting changing myself and sending to that person more gratitude and loving, You are helping transforming yourself, but you are also helping a lot the other person in starting this process of transformation. Because also sometimes all your parents wants to see or need to see is some gratitude from you. That might be the click that they need also to look into themselves and see, oh, I made so many mistakes. Look, I've done so much wrong things, and I still see my kid coming to me with gratitude and love. Some people can be really touched by that, and that might be their start also for that process of transformation. And then Kardec continued to explain that it's all about the law of loving, caring, and the main concept that without charity, there is no salvation, right? Because when you are a kid that is also born in a very difficult environment, without much love, without much caring, that is all we expect from parents. If you are still able to send them back love and caring, this means charity. You are actually exactly doing what Jesus teaches every day. You've been expressing charity towards your parents, showing them, okay, yes, you are not able to offer me this, but here is what I have to, I can offer you. Okay. All right, and then at the end, there is a part of this chapter that the spirits come and give us instructions. One part that I like as well, because they mention not only the duty of the parents to the kids towards the parents, but also the parents towards the kids. Kardec says, the spirits, Kardec just translated that, but the spirit that if the instructions have mothers, embrace the child which caused trouble and say to yourself, one of us is guilty. And when I read this, I even go beyond and tell the kid as well, look into your parent that is give you so much trouble and difficulty, that did not love you the way they were supposed to. Look at them, embrace them, and tell them, one of us is guilty. So I cannot change you, but I can change myself. So let's make the change right now. Make yourself worthy of the divine enjoyment that was given to you by God, like to be here present in this life. Take this advantage and start to change in order to perfect yourself, to love and to bless others. So this message for me kind of summarize everything. So, and I can bring this concept to everything in life, right? Not only problems with your parents, but everything, every relationship troubles and challenges that we face. Look into the others, look into your neighbors and see one of us is guilty. Stop just thinking that only the other's guilt, only my neighbor's guilt, only my partner, only my kid. I never look into myself and say, hey, I might be guilty here as well. I'm facing this, there's a reason. So I think that's the main thing that Spiritism tries to teach us over and over and over in many different situations, because this is the key in this process of improving yourself, in this process of inner transformation, right? So also in the Spirits book, there is a couple of questions regarding maternal and filial love, around the question 890, I think 890, 91, and 92. They all bring this concept as well about relationships between parents and kids. The question 890, it says, is maternal love an instinctive virtue or a feeling shared by both humans and animals? And then the Spirits answer, well, it is both. At the same time that you have that love from the mother towards the kids that we also see between animals, that is pretty much a love that allow them to survive, because if a mother did not have that love, she would just neglect that kid and the kid would die, right? So we need that instinctive love to allow them to survive. So nature has endowed the mother with the love of her children to guarantee their survival. In animals, maternal love is limited to providing the material needs for the mother's offspring. This affection ceases when this care is no longer needed. That's exactly what happened with animals. It also happened with human beings. But we, as a human that has the capacity to think, to understand, and as a spirit that we know that that connection of a mother and a kid is not by chance, there's a purpose behind it, there is the eternal life, and so on. So the spirits keep saying, in the human race, this connection lasts for a lifetime and assumes a character of selfless devotion, raising it to a virtue. It even survives death and follows the child in the afterlife. Therefore, there is more to this love in humans than, of course, it exists between the animals. So basically here, Kardec and the spirits are explaining to us the maternal connection between a mother and the kids. And that brings us again the question, but how come not all the time we see this love, right? And sometimes we see in the news a mother that killed their kids, for example. Like it's occasionally we see it. Thankfully, it's not so common, but we still see. And then again, the Spiritist teaching came to explain to us by knowing that this is just a part of their existence. There is a story behind it that none of us know, and probably that is a consequence of previous existence, previous conflicts that we cannot understand. It sounds very difficult to understand in this life, but we know that there is a reason. There is a reason for that mother, and there's a reason for that kid. And it's a huge trial that they are going through, and for sure they will face the consequence of that, right? So question 891, it asks, since maternal love is natural, why mothers hate their children? Why we see that? And often from birth. Then the Spirit says, the absence of maternal love is sometimes a trial chosen by the spirit of the child or a form of atonement if the child has been a bad father, mother, or a child in a prior life. In any case, a bad mother can only embody a bad spirit who tries to make the child fail in the chosen trial. This violation of natural law does not go unpunished, and the spirit of the child is rewarded for the obstacles it overcomes. And how this spirit of child will overcome this huge obstacle of having a mother that does not love him. The only way they will overcome this is by honor their parents. By even though I'm born in an environment without much love, I can still love. I can still be grateful. Because if it was not through those bodies, I wouldn't be here. So only when we are able to change that perspective, we are truly able to honor our parents. And of course, as it said, the Spirit clearly says here, whatever action that mother, that father did will not go unpunished. That will face their own consequence. So we don't need to judge. We don't need to worry. The justice of God is a reality. It's something that it's a law and will be present for everybody. Okay? So basically, also, just to finalize the question 583, it asks, if children go wrong despite their parents' care, are the parents responsible? And then the Spirit says, no, but the more hateful the disposition of their children and the more difficult their task, the greater their reward if they succeed in keeping them away from wrongdoing. So basically, it says to the parent, if you did everything you could to raise that kid, and still your kid did not choose the goodness, will not be your fault. You did your best. And again, this is just a reminder to us that once you have the free will, you have the control of your actions. So the same way that the kid cannot change the parents cannot change the kid when they become adult. We try our best to cultivate the good virtues to our kids while we can, but at some point they're gonna fly on their own and they will choose their choices, right? We cannot feel guilty if they make wrong choices, but at least we know that the best I could do, I've done. So it will be up to them and they will face their own consequence. So the same way we can translate to the kids at this point. So don't allow at the end, when you lose your parents, for you to stay in this life with a guilty heart saying, oh my God, I should have done this and that towards my parents. So the time to forgiveness is now. The time to love is now. The time for you to start this transformation is exactly now. Okay? So basically, just to finalize, my idea on this topic is to show that it all summarized in one word: gratitude. How I'm gonna be able to honor my parents if I have a heart full of gratitude. So Divaldo Franco once said, gratitude, in addition to the well-being it produces, it makes the individual begin to perceive others with the feeling of love. So I'm only gonna change my perception towards my parents if I have gratitude in my heart. When someone does you good, thank them and then do good to someone else. Gratitude is generous. So basically, they also continue following this talk of Divaldo. They say, by practicing gratitude, we will find ourselves giving more thanks and complaining less. So we stop complaining, oh, my life is this because my mom did this to me, my father did this to me, blah, 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 blah. Stop complaining and start to be thankful. The whole world is going to change around you because your perception is going to change. It is good for our overall health to cultivate joy, to feel more in tune with the higher plane of life. Life is a gift to all of us, no matter how painful it may be. Let us always pray. Prayer comforts us, calms, unlike complaining that does nothing to solve anything. So complaining does never help. Prayer change your tune, like you tune yourself to good energy and vibration that will give you the strength to make the transformation that you need. And I want to finish this talk by one poem from Amelia Rodriguez. I'm just going to read the very end because it's a long poem. Many here who have listened to talk from Divaldo probably heard about this poem many times because a very famous poem that he usually finishes talks with it. But basically, again, I want everybody here to live with this message of the power of gratitude that can change everything. So the very end of the poem, he finished like that. Thank you, Lord, for my home. How wonderful is to have a home. It does not matter if it's a mansion, a hut, a small room somewhere, a nest, a bungalow, or a charity home. May we find inside of it the loving figure of a mother or a father, of a husband or a wife, a brother or a sister, the presence of a friend, the loyalty company of a dog, someone to share our lives with. However, even if I don't have anybody to love, neither a roof to shelter me or a bed to rest, still I will not complain. On the contrary, I will thank you, Lord. Thank you because I was born. Thank you because I believe in you. For your love, thank you, God. So thank you very much for your time, for listening. And now it's time for comments, questions from the internet, if there is any. All right.
I was just going to suggest a lecture then. There's a book called Diary of a Drug Addicted that talks very clearly about what you're talking about. 'cause it's briefly, it's a story of a kid who was born in this family, parents, single kid, parents very, very selfish, and he kept his whole life questioning why they're so clutch, why they don't love me, why and then he dies in a very tragic way, and then the spiritual plan realized that in the previous life he was the father and they were the kids. A father who had no time for the kids but had a lot of money, so he spoiled the kids and taught them to be self-centered and selfish.
So now it inverted, right?
Inverted. And then I realized, oh, I had this selfish parents because
I built it.
I created those spirits to be selfish.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that every case is what it is, but like I said, to the point that the book really brings in a very clear way that nobody's born in the wrong family.
Yes.
Right? So there is always a reason why.
Yeah.
So it's
It's
a
very
interesting book to read.
It's very easy for us to see ourselves as a victim in any situation, right? And as a kid, it's the same. It's very easy to blame someone, to blame parents, to blame, but certainly there's a reason that this, whatever is happening, it's happening. Because like the book was one example, but something like nothing is by chance, and there is not such a thing like injustice. Like there is human injustice, but there's no injustice in God's law. So in that clearly explained. So I think as anything that Spiritism tells us, the key is stopping blaming and complaining and looking to ourselves and see how you can change. Because it's certainly you are guilty in this process. Like it's something that you cultivate at some point to be facing that challenge with. All right. Thanks, everybody. So now we're going to proceed with preparation to our passages.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. Thank you for all of you who was with us over the internet today. Hoping to see you back here next Sunday.